Oh, it really is party time, Mom. Welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. We're in the mothership, which is Studio 22. The perfectionist puppet master Mark is at the helm, driving us in to the nether regions of all things spy thriller. Doom, doom, doom. Oh, yeah, Candice, the queen of the Saudi Arabians. Brad Thor's on the show today, Natalie. Brad Thor.
Sexy.
Is on the show. I am sexy. He's super talented, though.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know who else is on the show? Party Foul Steve. Party Foul Steve's on the show. Look at him. There he is.
How are y'all doing?
Do you guys know why Steve sits right there in the middle? Well, first of all, because he needs to be the center of attention. But you know why? Because if you sit over there where the Texas legend Steve Helms is sitting and you're watching this on a television screen and people are doing the live chat, it blocks the face of the person and just scrolls up.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. So Steve makes sure
feels like people really need to see that
I'm
face.
always on this side, and if there's just two of us, the one sits on this side.
I thought it would be this chair that would be blocked.
Nope.
Turn it sideways.
Comes on a television. That's why I don't ever watch it on television. I had to go to Steve's house. Well, I was at Steve's house one time because it's always on their TV.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be larger than life so Steve can see Steve.
Yeah.
It's because my wife likes to watch it, not because of me. I ask her, "Are you watching because of me?" And she says, "Nope."
Trust me, you love yourself enough
I'm sure
for everybody.
you don't like to watch yourself, Steve.
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
I laugh at Party Foul, though. There's stuff that gets said on this show that I don't hear until I listen back, and I laugh my ass off. It's true. And it's just the off-the-cuff stuff that you included, say.
Yesterday.
Oh, God.
On the show, he wore a T-shirt that
You mean Monday?
No, yesterday. It aired yesterday.
It was which one? Okay, anyway.
Oh, last week.
I'm all confused. I don't know what day it is.
I don't even know what day it is.
Last week.
Yeah.
He wore a Chad Prather for Governor shirt, and I really am getting bombarded with people wanting to buy that shirt.
Really?
I really am.
Well, I
True
hope you
story.
send them to the right place. But don't talk about it because I'll get in trouble by the executives here at the place.
Okay.
Well, again,
You can't tell him about watchchad.com?
That's messed up. I've always been a rebel, right?
Yeah.
Gaston called me on the phone months ago, and he's like, "Chad, seriously, bro, you gotta quit. You gotta quit."
He's the rebel with a cause.
I was like, "My bad, man. I thought if we snuck it in the middle of the episode, y'all would quit watching."
I thought they were benevolent overlords.
Yeah, it's okay. I love being a part of the Blaze. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I love being a part of this studio,
Me too.
this network. I do. I'm not kissing anybody's ass. I do that some, but
Not really.
Not this time.
No, he doesn't.
I really don't.
You don't.
But I do love being. I'm all for one for all kind of thing in here. This is my family. I mean, this is not just you guys, but the larger Blaze deal. Not Glenn Beck, but the rest of everybody else is like really kind of my family. Mm-hmm. I love him. Stuber Gear's weird until he starts drinking. Then it's like,
great.
Okay, he's normal. He's normal.
I
You
used to
just
like
got to get
him.
him drunk. And who knew Jason Buttrell got so quiet when he drank alcohol?
That's the trick. Now I know how to shut him up.
Yeah. Who knew? I mean, insane. I'm excited about today's show, though. I am a big fan of Brad Thor. I've read all the books except for the one that comes out tomorrow. Near Dark is the name of it. It is the 20th book of Brad's, and it is the latest installment of the Scott Harvath series. Literally, if you get on my phone and you type Scott Harvath, it's going to send you over to my favorites because I keep the chronological list of the books for the website. I go to it because I wanted to read them all in order. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've read every word, every single word. So I'm excited about this one. It's called Near Dark. It is dark. I've read the review on it. I'm not excited about it in terms of what's going to happen, but I got to read it. Yeah. Like, I'm excited, but I'm like, some really dark things are going to happen. Anyway.
Oh.
You should read a book sometime.
I have.
You have?
I mean,
was it a good experience?
Yeah.
She went to school.
1984.
Yeah, no, I did read
went to
1984.
school.
They made me.
3 books a week I read.
That I am not an avid reader like that. I'm very impressed that you do that.
3 books a week.
I'm pretty sure I have dyslexia, so reading isn't as fun for me as it would be for somebody like you.
Oh, no, I can't comprehend shit, but I do read them.
Can you do Audible?
No,
I can't.
I can't listen to a book.
I can't. I'll be driving for 20 minutes and then go, oh, crap.
So
I've
years
just
ago,
missed it.
I was
Yeah.
listening to
No
the
idea what I just
Chicago
listened to.
State Fair when they had that, or the Illinois State Fair. What the World's Fair they had in Chicago?
Yeah.
It's the World's Fair.
Yeah.
And there was like a murderer that lived down the street. This was back in 1919, something like that, 1920. I listened to that, and I was like, this book sucks. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Then I realized it was on a CD, and it was on random. I was like, son of a bitch. I was like, wait a minute. They killed that guy in the last chapter. How's he still alive here? This book sucks, man. Golly, what do you mean a Lindbergh baby? I mean, what's going on?
The butler did it in the first 3 seconds.
Yeah. I was like, well, this thing, Jesus. Talk about no suspense. Boy, you kill that hard on.
That's awesome.
Hey, guys. Wow, the left embraces cancel culture. I want you to get in on the action. Cancel your leftist-supporting cell phone provider and make the switch to America's only conservative cell phone carrier, Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile shares your values and will never charge you hidden fees. None like Big Mobile. They won't send your hard-earned money to Planned Parenthood or other leftist causes. Get the same reliable, nationwide service and support a company that loves this country, shares your values, supports our Constitution, puts people before profits, and switching is easy. They've made it that way for you. You can keep your phone number. You can bring your own phone. You can get a new one from them. Right now, when you join their family of freedom-loving Americans, get free activation plus a free gift with the offer code CHAD, C-H-A-D. Veterans and first responders save even more, so please make the switch. Call 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT, or visit patriotmobile.com/Chad and get your customized plan. It starts at just $25. 972-PATRIOT or patriotmobile.com/Chad. Be right back. Finally, we've been talking about this. I've been talking about it for a year and a half. Anybody that's watching the show and has hung in there with us, you know I'm a big fan of Brad Thor. Obviously, there are fiction writers, and then there's Brad Thor. So I'm happy to have him on the show today. We're going to talk to him about the new book that's coming out, the new Scott Harvath, the latest novel in the saga, in the series. It's called Near Dark, and it's going to be out this week. And you need to make sure that you guys are getting this thing. You got to start all the way back at the beginning, get caught up, but I'm telling you, it's the best stuff out there. Brad, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for coming
Chad.
on.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this. I told you I just finished the last book, and this guy is Scott Harvath. I mean, he's in limbo at this point. And heading into a dark place of his life. And I don't want to give away anything more than what I'll let you do that. But what a character this guy is. I mean, how much when you spend that much time with a character, how much of you is coming out of that person and how much of him is you?
Well, Harvath was a SEAL. I was not a SEAL. My dad is a no longer active Marine. But Stephen King had a great piece of advice for writers, which is write what you love to read, because that's where your passion is. So I grew up reading Freddie Forsyth, John le Carré, the Ludlum books, Clancy. I loved all that stuff. And I knew that when I eventually wrote thrillers, when I became an author, period, I wanted to write thrillers, and I wanted to do them kind of in that vein of spies and Delta Force guys, special ops. And so that's my passion, goes through that character. But I joke that Harvath gets to do all the things my wife won't let me do. So that's part of a lot of writing that character.
I've wondered about that, because if you read the Scott Harvath series, I'm going to hold the cover up here, let you see it. If you read that series, here's a guy who basically has no ties ultimately and historically, right? He nobody knows where he is in the world at any given time. I mean, he's out on a mission. He's doing, wherever the Carlton Group sends him, he's out there doing it. And every now and then he checks in back at home, and he's out there. He's like, as you say, an apex predator, a guy who doesn't know anything except to go out and be a hunter, right? And a person who goes out there and gets the job done. And so I'm like, I wonder how much of this would go over in marriage counseling,
Listen, it's tough stuff, Chad. I'm always reminded of that scene in American Sniper that for me was one of the truest scenes in that entire movie, where Chris is back and he's in a bar, and Taya reaches out to him, and she's like, "Wait, you're back?
Yeah.
And you're in a bar? Why didn't you?" There's this compartmentalization that needs to happen between what you need to leave on the battlefield and conversely what you need to leave at home before you go to the battlefield. And it's funny, I read a review of a really cool translation of the Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. And it said exactly that soldiers going to war should read the Iliad so they learn what parts of their civilized life to leave behind. And soldiers coming home from war should read the Odyssey to understand what parts of the battlefield to leave behind on the battlefield. So listen, this is a tough thing. There's a very, very high divorce rate in the special operations community with the men and women in the intel community, because they do get dispatched at a moment's notice and they got to go down range. And I say two things all the time, Chad. Number one, there cannot be an American dream without brave men and women willing to protect it, and families serve too. Just because your loved ones are going downrange and going into harm's way doesn't mean the family doesn't serve, doesn't mean they don't stay home and stress the entire time their loved ones are away. So we're really lucky to have the warrior class that we do in this country, our fellow Americans that are willing to go and make it so you and I can do what we do. I write books, you're hosting TV, you're making music. That doesn't happen without these incredible men and women. So my books, while they're fiction, I spend a lot of time with these people, so the books read as real as possible. And the books are essentially my way of giving voice to the quiet professionals who technically don't exist.
Yeah. Glenn Beck and I were talking about you about probably a year ago, and I made the comment of how much I learn when I read your fiction books. And Glenn said, well, I call it faction. Right. And so every now and then Glenn comes up with something smart. He probably stole it from somebody. I don't know where this guy gets his stuff. But anyway, and it's true. And that to me is, for me, that is the biggest compliment I could give somebody, is how much I learn from reading. Because a lot of times people say, well, you read a fiction book, it's just kind of pablum. I mean, this is something to occupy the time. No, you actually learn. I mean, I've learned more about foreign policy from Brad Thor than I have from anything on the news. So it's interesting when you do that. But when you live with a character like that, you got Lee Child with the Jack Reacher character. You've got our buddy Jack Carr with James Reese. And I love seeing these guys who are coming along like Jack, right, who was a former Navy SEAL. When you see guys who are doing that, because I've talked with Jack as well, I mean, he looks to you as sort of kind of an unspoken, unsung mentor in many ways, I think, in terms of, I mean, it's like these guys, there's Brad Thor, and then there's everybody else that's trying to write books the same way. Does you even feel that way? Does it come across that way in terms of the accolades or how people respond to you?
It's funny because I've been at this now. I've got 20 books, 19 in the Harvest series. And by the way, for anybody who's watching, listening, that's never read a Brad Thor book, I say they're like the James Bond movies. Yeah. You don't have to have seen all the Bond movies to watch the new one. I set it up for you so you can jump in at any book, and they're always going to be current and fresh, and you're going to have a good time. But guys like Jack, I was talking to Jack before he even got published. A SEAL buddy of mine said, hey, I got this brother, he's doing some writing and he enjoys your books, so would you talk to him? I'm like, yeah, of course I'll talk to him. I mean, again, I'm so passionate about our warriors. I said, I'd be happy to talk to him. And we got along like a house on fire. I think he's a fabulous writer. But as far as how I'm seen, Chad, listen, I'm a Midwestern guy. My dad's a no longer active Marine. I went to school on the GI Bill. My mom was a flight attendant for TWA. They both became entrepreneurs. And me, it's nose to the grindstone every single time. I don't work for Simon & Schuster. I work for the readers. They're my bosses. Those 3, 4, 5-star reviews, whatever they give me, that's my annual performance review on Amazon and Goodreads. And so when you talk about these guys saying, oh, and Brad Thor, and I kind of look up to him, I don't, all I do is write my books. I don't, there's a term for it where you're concerned that the next book, I always say, is the book I'm doing now good enough to get me a deal in New York if nobody knew who I was?
Right.
It's that commitment to never phoning it in. So when I hear something very kind like that from you or from Jack or whatever, it doesn't compute. It just does not get through my grape that these people have said, oh, and then there's Brad Thor, because every year I'm competing against myself trying to get better. I think that's just kind of the nature of being a small business person, which is what I consider myself.
And I'll reiterate what you said there at the beginning. If you pick up any one of those books in any part of the series, you're going to get caught up. You're going to hear the backstory. You know, if you introduce a character in the book, and that those of us who have read all the books, you're like, okay, well, I can kind of skip this paragraph because I know where Nicholas came from. You know, I know his backstory, and so that. But I love the fact that you do that, because you don't. It's not one of those cliffhangers where you got to know what came before. The elements of the story build on one another, but it's a standalone book, and I appreciate the fact that it's so well crafted in that way. Do you ever look at this? And I know that it's got to be kind of like giving birth, right? You look at this and it's like I've labored over this, and now here's this product. Have you ever looked at a book and said, "This is my favorite"?
You know what? It's interesting because David Morrell, who wrote Rambo,
right.
he goes around, he calls himself Rambo's daddy, which he's totally allowed to do. It's really funny to see him introduce himself in a bar or to somebody like that. I love David. He's a great writer and a great teacher of writing. And he said that your idea each year, if you're doing a book a year, has to be so exciting to you that it propels you through that gestation period, that given birth. So when people ask me, what's your favorite book? I say it's the next one. Because that's the one I'm currently working on now. It's the one I'm most excited about. I try to find an idea out there. I mean, you're so kind. You talk about learning about geopolitics and stuff in the books. My book, you're supposed to take to the lake. You're supposed to take to the beach, toes in the sand, book in the hand kind of a thing. And I want you flipping those pages. They're short, crisp, cinematic. But if you close the book, having learned a little bit of something, I'm not here to teach anything. It's fiction. It's supposed to be fun.
Sure.
But if you do pick up a thing or two along the way, then for me, that's icing on the cake. I've given you a bonus. Because my big thing is you can go make another, $25 if you buy the hardcover or $9.99 for a paperback.
Yeah.
But what you can't make more of is your time. And that's where I consider myself most responsible to you. You're trusting me with your time. I want to give you even more value for your money and your time than what you've invested in me, so that you say, this Thor guy's okay. I'm going to read another book of his.
Yeah. And it gets addictive. It really does, because I remember you alluded to Stephen King earlier. I remember Stephen King, and I think it was his on writing where he said, give it 20 minutes. And if 20 minutes into the book you're not into it and it's not gripping you, put it down and go read something else. There's too many other good things to read. And so when, I think what was the first one, Lions of Lucerne, and I picked that up and I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, I'm into this, right? I'm into this. There's so many different folks out there in a genre that you can choose from. But again, when we talk about that faction, the learning, it is entertaining to learn these things, right? You're seeing a community of people, and you're right. Anytime I'm on stage, I always say it's the greatest country that's ever existed. It's still the greatest country because we got men and women that are willing to put on a uniform, and so many unsung people who don't put on the uniform, but still, go and do these things that we'll never know their name. We'll never know what they do. We'll never know these things that are going on around us, and that's what he is the epitome of in this book. So, in all the books, do you find yourself? And this is something that fascinates me about writers and authors. How much do you feel driven to read yourself of other authors and things like that? Or is it, I got to write?
So Louis L'Amour, the famous Western author, had said, you can't even be a halfway decent writer without being an incredibly voracious reader.
Right.
And Louis always, if he was at the post office, the grocery store, standing online to pay for his groceries, he always had a paperback in his back pocket, and he would pull it out and start reading. So I read everything, and I read fiction, I read nonfiction. So yeah, each really important. And that's also one of the things that I love about being an author is I can always get better. right? I think there's probably singers out there that maybe if you work on breath control and stuff, I don't hear a lot of singers saying, I'm still going to voice lessons and stuff. But and you could speak to it better than I could, Chad, because I can't sing. But with my craft of writing, I look at it as I can always get better. And I get better by studying other forms of writing, other people that are successful with their writing. I read books on writing. So if I'm not writing, I'm reading, and it's a toss-up between, fiction and nonfiction, but sprinkled into the nonfiction is are lots during the year books on writing.
Yeah.
Always trying to get better,
Yeah.
up the game.
I love it.
But it's like an athlete, right? You're always trying to get a couple seconds off your time or push the weight a little bit harder because you'll perform better on the field. And that's kind of how I look at it.
We're going to take a quick break. We're with Brad Thor. He's got his new book coming out, Near Dark, and it's in the Scott Harvath series. It is the latest of these incredible books, and we're going to talk some more about that because I want to talk about some of the story development when we come back. But before we go to a break, I want to remind you guys about Keeps. If you're like me, your hair's falling out. Look at Brad. Look how good his hair looks. Look at that hair. My God. What the heck? You know what? Losing hair is no fun, especially if you're a guy who's, everything's going on for you, but you got, your hair's falling out. You can go to the pharmacy. You can get all that expensive stuff to try to keep from going bald, but I want to encourage you to go to Keeps, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home and living room. You're going to get the same doctor-recommended, FDA-approved hair loss treatment, but Keeps is going to offer the generic versions for about half the cost. And the beautiful thing about Keeps is you do it all online. Just answer a few questions, snap a couple of pictures of the top of your head, and a licensed doctor is going to review your info and recommend the right hair loss treatment for you. Going to be shipped discreetly to your door, so don't make the unnecessary trip to the doctor in the drugstore. Save some money, and I'm going to get you started with a special deal. Go to Keeps.com, KEEPS.com/loss for 50% off your first order. Keeps hair loss treatments. Go get it. Keeps.com/loss. Hang tight. We'll be right back with Brad Thor. Haunted by the deaths of those he loved most and spiraling into self-destruction, Scott's jolted back to reality after a rowdy bar fight turns lethal. I don't like that whole deaths of those he loved part, Brad. I'm just telling you, man. It's always tough. You were talking earlier about, crafting these books and kind of, making the next one better and how can you create and all these things. And there's, when you create that reality, there's so many directions you can go on that. When you're looking at a book and you're looking at a concept, where does the story come from? What's your motivation in that area? Do you work backwards? Do you work forwards? Is it, can you even tell us?
No, well, a lot of people say, where do you get your ideas? And I say, I get them in the shower or after the second glass of brown water.
Yeah.
It's stuff comes to me when I'm relaxed. And I'm also a voracious, as we talked about in the other segment, consumer of news, as well as being a voracious reader. So I look at things and say, what if this, what if that? What's interesting about Near Dark, though, the way the idea came together is last year when I was wrapping up writing the manuscript for Backlash, Barnes & Noble said, hey, we'd like you to give us a bonus chapter, and we're going to create a special edition for our customers. And me being the small businessman, I want all my business partners to be happy. I'm like, you got it. Sure. I'll do it. And I got to the end of my manuscript. I'm like, oh, God, now I got to write this chapter. What am I going to do? And my kids love the Marvel movies, and we know to never leave the theater until after the credit crawl because that final scene pops up. And I thought, okay, what could I do that's kind of similar to that? The book itself was done. Everything was sewn up perfectly. Backlash didn't need an extra chapter. But I got this idea for a bonus chapter that I thought would be really cool. And I pitched my editor. She's like, write it. And I wrote it that somebody was taking out $100 million bounty halfway around the world on my main character. And I wrote it, and my editor loved it. Barnes & Noble loved it. Great. Well, like the Marvel universe, that now becomes part of my protagonist universe. I couldn't have in this year's book, Near Dark, Scott Harvath wake up and do the old soap opera trope. Woo! What a bad dream that was.
Right.
$100 million bounty. I'm so glad it didn't happen. Just a dream. But so I had to start this book with that chapter as the prologue to Near Dark. And I reached out to some of my buddies in the special operations community and in the intelligence community. And I said, listen, if all of a sudden you found out there was $100 million price tag on your head, what would you do? And one of the first guys that I went to said, well, the only way to kill a contract like that is to kill the person who put it out on you. It's the only way to get rid of it. And I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. But what was so tough for me, Chad, is I like this idea of Harvath having assassins chasing him. But if Harvath throws his phone away and doesn't tell anybody where he is, you're never going to find him. So it was tough because I wanted to shove this round story into it's kind of the round peg into a square hole, and it wasn't fitting. And then I realized what Near Dark was going to be about was these guys think they're playing cat and mouse with Harvath, but he's already 3 steps ahead of them, and he's unraveling their whole thing right behind them, and they don't even know, like the ghost of death that he is, the angel of death, that he's right behind him figuring out what's going on, and he's plucking this guy's dead, now this guy, and he's working his way through them. So it was tough, but each book is different, right? So I had an idea for a global pandemic in my book Code of Conduct, where I started off by saying, if the president of the United States could get the virus, everybody else in America realized they weren't safe. And that's what started that book off. And I thought, okay, this will be cool. Never thinking COVID was coming, knowing it was always a possibility. So these things start as little nuggets of ideas, often with me looking at something in the world and saying, what if that isn't what we think it is? Like the Cold War. We won the Cold War. My book, State of the Union. I said, well, what if the Soviets actually rolled over and played dead, played possum on us? And we didn't win it the way we thought. So it's more back to Stephen King. Stephen King has a great line. He says, writers are people who've trained their minds to misbehave. And I think that's very true, especially in my case. Although I didn't train it came wired messed up.
I'll tell you, when I read Code of Conduct, well, I say that, I thought back to Code of Conduct, and I was like, this guy's prophetic. Because, I mean, you wrote that in, what, 16, 17? Or, I mean, when was that released? That's been a couple of years.
I think that might have, I'm trying to look back to my bookshelf here. That's probably, that's
probably 4 or 5 books back, isn't it?
Yeah. It's probably 2014 or 2015. And so, I
mean, you could have plucked that literally out of the headlines today.
Yeah, listen, when we let those 5 guys go from Gitmo in exchange for Bo Bergdahl, I started my book, The First Commandment, with 5 guys being released from Gitmo in exchange for another guy. And that ended up coming true. That was just the lucky pick. I could have picked 4 guys or 6 guys. I happened to pick 5, and that's how many of the guys we let go out of Gitmo. So sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's just having read the tea leaves a certain way. It just, a lot of the stuff that I've put in the books is rolled out in real life. And I think that's part of the fun for my readers too, is they love seeing stuff that comes true in the books. And so that just gives the current book they're reading even more resonance, that this could explode on your front door this afternoon, what's happening in the thriller.
What would you do, if somebody's wanting to get into, the average person that writes a book, they're not going to make any money, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. I mean, it's a hard business to get into and to be successful at it. Do you still encourage young writers, new writers, folks that want to get into the business? I mean, what are the warnings that you give to them? What are the yellow flags that are there?
Well, if this is your dream, I encourage everybody to go and do it, because I was on my honeymoon. I had gone overseas after college. I'd saved some money to go overseas and write a book, and I gave up after 3 chapters because I had this voice that I think we all do in the back of our minds that says, maybe it's not a good idea. You may embarrass yourself. This may be terrible. You may fail. Don't do it. And I succumbed to that voice, and I went into television instead. And I was in TV for a number of years, hosting a program on public television, a travel show. And on my honeymoon, my wife said, what would you regret on your deathbed never having done? And I said, writing a book and getting it published. And she said, okay, when we get home, 2 hours a day, you need to start making that dream come true. And so that push really helped get me there. I think anybody who wants to write a book should absolutely do it, Chad. 99% of the people that say they're going to do it never do it. So if you can finish it, that's a huge sense of accomplishment. It's like running your first marathon, I've got to imagine, climbing your first mountain. I've written 20 books now. None of them feel as good to finish as that first one did, because I knew that I could write more. But the business is tough, and I think it's even tougher because there's the siren song of self-publishing. So I think a lot of people feel, I'll just go publish it on Amazon. And, that may work for some people. I don't poo-poo the independent publishing industry at all if that's where people want to go. But I do encourage people to stick with it, that kind of Navy SEAL mentality. When I was talking to Jack Carr, I said, Jack, it's going to be impossible for you to ever get your book published. And he said, why? I said, because your SEALs are all quitters.
Exactly.
The minute you guys see something that's a challenge, you run away. And he laughed so hard because he knew I was kidding him. But I said, just stick with it. Don't quit. And that's the advice I'd give any writer is stick with it. Don't quit. And the key to getting a book published is finding an agent. It's not finding a publisher. It's finding an agent. And agents will tell you only approach one of us at a time. There's a great book that you can get at any bookstore called The Guide to Literary Agents. And it's a whole listing, like a phone book, of agents who are looking for new writers. And they say, just approach one of us at a time. And I say, forget that. Because if it takes one agent 3 months to turn you down and you have to go through 12 agents, that's 3 years of your life. Yeah. I say pick 10, 15 that you think would really love your book and hit them all at the same time. Shotgun effect.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And you referenced Jack Carr. I mean, if you're a Navy SEAL, I think that's in the contract. You got to write a book when you get out of the SEALs. You got to write a book.
That's what Delta guys say, too.
Yeah.
And like, how many Navy SEALs does it take to complete the operation? And it's like 8. Plus one more to write the book. That's kind of the ongoing joke. And I say that with all the love in my heart for everyone in the SEAL community. But that is, listen, those guys are smart. They go into finance and they write books. There are no dummies in the SEAL community.
No, there's really not. And that's why I love giving my buddy Clint Emerson a hard time. I was like, at least yours has cartoon pictures in it, And Clint's a good buddy, right? And I give him the hardest time. I'm like, you wrote the perfect SEAL book because yours is illustrated.
The 100 Deadly Skills and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've got books here. I like him a lot. He's great on social media, super guy. Marcus Luttrell and his brother Morgan, 2 more Texas guys, are absolutely fantastic. I love those guys. There's some super people that come out of that community. I really, really like the SEALs. They're just great people.
Yeah, they're it's a great community. We've been blessed and fortunate to get to know a lot of those guys, and I love the accuracy that you write Scott Harvath with. Just compared to, because I ask those guys questions. I say, if you read these, what are your thoughts on that? And they're like, yeah, he nails it. He nails it. And I think that's
because I talk to guys like Marcus and
guys,
Morgan, because I know that if I get anything wrong, I'm going to hear from our buddy Pete or Paul or Marcus or Morgan. So I really feel compelled. These guys are not really out there saying, you get some SEALs that are writing thrillers like Jack Carr and things like that. But I really consider that brand. I'm fortunate in that I'm able to write about the exploits of these incredible warriors. So I better get it right. And if I don't, it's on me. The mistakes are all my fault, all my responsibility. I don't blame anybody who's a helpful guy with details to my books. I own those mistakes. So I take it very seriously. And what's cool, Chad, is how many young men and women I hear from that say, after reading your books, I want to join up. Awesome. Either I want to join the Navy, I want to join the Army, Air Force, the Marines, Coast Guard, or I want to go into the FBI, or I decided I want to be a cop in my town because I love the ethos, the warrior ethos that I read about in your books. Yeah. And you couldn't get better fan mail than that.
Yeah, that's good. We got another minute. I want to ask you, how important is pre-ordering books? I pre-order books. I just think it helps get the rankings out there.
Huge.
Yeah,
it's huge. It sends a signal to the marketplace about what the expectation is for a book, and it can really help an author. If you have an author that you love, one of the greatest things you can do for that author is to pre-order their new book and then just talk about it with friends, family, coworkers. Word of mouth is one of the best things for an author, but pre-ordering is so helpful.
Well, Brad Thor, folks, the Scott Harvath novels, you got to get them. The new one is Near Dark. It comes out tomorrow, actually. So if you're watching this tonight, go ahead, pre-order it. You'll get it tomorrow, so that's fantastic. If you're doing it on a digital download, but get the book. I mean, I was telling him off the camera here, I've kind of forgotten what pages feel like. I read so much digitally. Brad, thanks, man. I'm thankful for you. I appreciate you. Appreciate your investment in what you do because it's an investment in my life, and I'm thankful for it. So the best wishes to you, and here's to being on the top of the bestseller list.
Thank you, brother. It was good being with you, and I look forward to being back again. Take care of yourself and your family.
Thanks, Brad. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Brad Thor, folks. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to read that book. I admire people who do stuff like that, though. I mean, you know how tedious it is? I mean, not only to write the book, but the detail and the research that goes into. I mean, there's so much there in those books. I'm just telling you, if you've never read them, you gotta get into it.
I've read every single word of his Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
The man ran for president for like 6 weeks.
Forgot that.
Yeah. Yeah, check it out. Brad Thor's an interesting cat. He's an interesting cat. I like him. Yeah, and so that was fun. You liked him too, didn't you? You were
He's pretty.
He's a pretty man.
Yeah.
His hair.
Is
Perfect.
Got
Yeah.
that perfect little swoop going on.
I noticed that these authors, they tend to be rather attractive. They're very debonair, very suave. I'm going to stop talking. You know, Jack
Yeah, I don't know
Carr,
if I agree with that. Yeah. Yes, the ones that you've had on the show. You pick all the pretty ones.
Clint Emerson.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a little stretch to
Good-looking
call
dudes.
Clint an author. We got to get Clint back on the show. He's got a new deal coming out, basically how to kill people. I love Clint. I love his books. I mean, he's got some really practical stuff. And I love the chapter about shoving stuff up your butt in order to hide it
Yeah.
in a cigar tube. That's a cool
Has
one.
it come in pretty useful in your life?
Well, I mean, you notice I'm kind of sitting sideways
Yeah.
right now.
Who doesn't
Anyway.
do that, you know?
Yeah, well. Anyway, I love it, man.
prison
so
wallet.
I'm real appreciative of Brad coming on the show, man.
Yeah.
And but I do encourage you guys to do it. We've had some good folks on here that have written some really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like a bucket list for me to get Brad on because legit.
I know what it goes through to write a 3-minute song and have 12 of them on a CD. To write a freaking book, dude.
Book, dude.
But no, have 20,
Series.
30 books that
Yeah.
you've written.
Well, it's like you
That's
said, I mean-
amazing to me.
It's a book a year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, that's insane.
That's amazing to me.
you know, and you look at Jack Carr when he writes a thing, he's got to put like a product guide in the back of all the weapons and the companies, and sometimes I'm like, bro, he put on his 9-line apparel shirt. Jack, stop it. But by the way, you could say Chad Prather for governor. I mean, let's go ahead and talk about that, Jack. You know, boy, howdy.
Being an author like that, that's just a different mindset.
It
You're
is.
just
The dedication
beast.
to it. That's the thing. The tediousness and the dedication, the tenacity of hanging in there and doing it. Because, you know, I've written plenty in my life, but to sit down and just say, okay, because after a while you're like, is this shit any good? Right? You start second guessing.
I do that a lot.
I mean, it's like when we write songs and we put them on the thing, and Party Foul Steve, who, by the way, has never creatively composed a damn thing in his life, who goes, it's a fun song. I mean,
It's not entirely true.
it's like no,
close.
it's reasonably. No, that's
okay.
true. You have, but your stuff can't be repeated.
no, usually not.
Like 100%. He'll be singing songs in the car when we're traveling somewhere, and I'm like, what did you just say? And let me tell you, if I'm responding like that, it's strong.
Yeah.
It's strong.
May I say, though, I do know personally some celebrities who have authored books, and I've
Like
read,
who?
and I'm like, you didn't write that.
That's right.
That
That's
is
right.
the truth. I'm like, no, you did not write. You did not put that together.
No, that's true.
It was their ideas and their thoughts, but somebody handled it
I'm
for them,
saving
which
my
is fine.
book writing until after Chad is elected governor of the state of Texas.
Oh, boy.
He's sitting on $1 million.
Tell all right
I mean,
there.
Party Foul's been sitting on $1 million for a long time. You stay seated.
He's got something shoved up his butt in a
Yeah,
cigar thing.
there's a cigar tube up there. But that what's in that?
Clear, we're good.
The stuff in his butt will save your life, according to Clint Emerson. I don't know what in the hell I'm going to do with all that cotton, but yeah,
If that thing comes open in there,
you're going to have a 16-penny nail and a thumb and a thimble. Anyway, yeah, well, I got a little money in my butt, and it feels real funny in my butt. You can put a telephone in your
my
butt.
butt.
It's like a dinosaur bone in your butt. Anyway,
Anyway.
Eddie Murphy. In a Hollywood hot tub. Go
make
kiss
sweat.
myself. We're off the rails. I'm sorry, Brad Thor. This is a very suave.
You think
individual.
we went from Brad Thor novelist to off the rails.
Yeah.
Do you think his family like ever sees him? He writes that many books.
Well, you know, and
you gotta
again,
stay hold up, right?
True.
you go back. I mean, yeah. Well, it's like he said. His wife said, you know, take 2 hours a day and dedicate yourself to that. But obviously, you saw his green screen there behind him, which was actually his office. You know, during the break, folks, they were asking if that was a green screen or whatever, and I'm like,
was
no,
me.
it's
It wasn't.
I know. She's like, no, I did not.
So
Well, I wasn't
obviously,
gonna sell you out
Scott
until you
Harveth
said
has
it.
paid very well. Paid very, very well. Anyway,
That was a sexy background.
oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. I want a house. I hope one day I can get a house.
The governor's mansion.
I ain't living in it. That's
I know.
La Hacienda de las Personas.
Yes. De la Piperos.
Somebody told me the other day that was racist. Speaking Spanish?
Is racist.
Apparently. You know what else they've canceled? The name Payday, because y'all fools don't work. And it's offensive.
What?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh my
kidding.
God.
It offends people who don't want to get a job. Got to change the candy bar Payday.
Well, you know.
But I mean, you wouldn't put it past anybody. right?
exactly. That's what I'm saying. You don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
2020 is the onion in real life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not that
I mean-
he can't get paid. He's just waiting on his stimulus package. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Steve gets 4 checks. I mean, you should get a pandemic a year, man.
Yeah.
You know, load it up. So when they send it to you, they send you a check or they send you like a card?
What, for stimulus?
Yeah.
No, direct deposit.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
I know several people who got a card, like a Visa.
So that must be when they don't have their direct deposit hooked up to the IRS.
Get you a little gift card.
I didn't. I mean, I'm rich. But I'm homeless. So my wife owns a house. My wife owns a house.
Which one?
Well, the first one and the last one. I don't know if that came out right. Where am I? I just got lightheaded. I feel dizzy. Woo, time to start drinking some of that whiskey that's on the shelf, I think. Oh, boy, howdy. I am not kidding. Hope everybody had a great Monday.
It's a Monday.
Obviously, it was great for you to hang out with us. You're welcome. It's fantastic. Fantastic. You got to get that book, though. Got to start Lions of Lucerne if you want to start the series and go in order.
How many books are there total?
19 Scott Harveth books, but he's written 20.
20.
That's what I counted on the
I
green
don't have
screen.
enough years left in my life. I just like,
That's like when you were reading Echo and Ramadi of sitting on the plane.
that was like the easiest reading book I've ever read.
he
It's
was
like I
so
wrote it.
studious sitting over there
Easiest
reading
reading.
Homeboy's book.
Scott Hughley.
Scott, I know.
Oh, okay. I was like, you got to give him a shout out.
Yeah,
So,
Scott. I was about to say. Anyway, be right back. I want to remind everybody at the end of this week, we will be in Oklahoma City Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. We're gonna own Oklahoma City at that point. 6 shows, 4 nights. Gonna be there. So get your tickets at watchchad.com. That's where all the fun stuff is. Steve Helms Band. Steve, I got a royalty check the other day.
Yes.
$34. $34. I'm a musician.
You said you were rich, but I didn't realize you were talking that big money.
Not like that.
Balling,
You get-
like Dwayne Johnson money.
Getting into double digits right there, buddy.
Yeah, $34. And then I got another deal through a deal. It's like $134. And I was like, I'm moving up in the music
Getting
scene.
there, dude.
You know, just hang in there.
my YouTube channel, I'm up to $26.
A month?
No. Total.
Lifetime.
Oh,
Before
That's
long,
good.
dude, you'll be so good in the music industry that you'll hang out on your buddy's website
yeah,
and his podcast.
exactly.
That's how good I am, bro.
That's
Yeah.
right. SteveHelmsBand.com.
Yeah.
How about that for a plug?
Shut
Party
my
Foundation
bars
on
down.
YouTube. Sarah Gonzalez Unplugged.
Or unfiltered.
That too.
No.
I just want to make sure they were paying attention. Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered. Where the hell did Unplugged come from? And Natalie does stuff. But anyway, the you know.
Two.
Now, seeing your shirt
I
there,
would
Fort Worth
matter.
Sound. Huh?
I matter. That's all I was going to say. I matter.
Says that on her Wikipedia page.
Okay.
She does stuff.
Not lives matter.
All right, guys, we love y'all. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Okay.